Welcome to Socialism for All. This is Livestream, I think number 5 or 6. I want to say it's number 6. And yeah, this has been scheduled for now as a regular thing. Tuesday and Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern for, I don't know, a couple hours. The Saturday ones tend to go a little longer. Yeah, so first of all, the good news. I mainly started doing these to qualify for the Twitch affiliate program. And I have done enough streaming now with enough people watching, so thank you all for your part in that, to qualify for Twitch affiliate. So I think I will go ahead and go through that process and see if I can upload the stuff. I don't know exactly what's involved in becoming an affiliate beyond, that. I don't know if you have to like apply or whatever, but anyway, I have done the basics, which, just for the record, actually, it was I had to reach 50 followers, stream for 8 hours, stream on 7 different days, and have an average of 3 viewers. Pretty low bar, but anyway, we did it, and you had to do all that within 30 days, so that's up. So yeah, I did some thinking. The last few live streams were good, but there's something about, as I mentioned last time, me just sitting here and people randomly just being like, thoughts on China? That's not really the way that I want to run these streams. And I'm not sure exactly where we're going with this, but I'd like to have it a bit more as a discussion rather than just, random people sort of just blurting out things for me to give an opinion on. I'm not super comfortable with that, and nobody else should be either, as far as I'm concerned. I know that that's the way that a lot of these things usually run. Like, hey, let's get this streamer's take. Well, I'm not a streamer. I don't ever want to be. This is, auxiliary. This is in addition to the basic thing that we do on the channel, which is audiobooks and current event. Yeah, Blanchevic says, please just tell me what to think. I think that that's what a lot of people come to streamers for, honestly. And that's really not what I want to do here. So I'm sure that there will be some of that still, just because of the nature of this, is you all can hear me and nobody else can hear you. There's the chat going and this and that. But, I think that that's where a lot of like debate bro stuff comes from, is just like, well, this person thinks this and this person thinks that, and let's have them fight it out. That's stupidity. I'm not sure anybody really gets anywhere with that. And it's like the, when you're gonna debate so and so, and it's just like, I did I don't know what to say. That stuff's really frustrating to me. So, I guess going into this, this is probably going to take several sessions to kind of even start figuring out what the new format is. But, I guess if you all can phrase things less as thoughts on this, like, would you walk up, if you, let's say you're at a party, you see somebody you want to talk to, we just walk up to them and be like, thoughts on the Ukraine? No, you probably wouldn't. It's weird. Or just throwing out random questions like that. I don't know. So I guess we could start with, what does everybody have in common? Well, everybody has heard of S4A at some point or another, and everybody's interested in Marxism to some extent, probably Marxism-Leninism, as S4A leans strongly ML. We consider other things, but that's basically the gist of it and the core of it, and then we supplement around that. But I don't know. Getting takes on current events is one thing. I'm just wondering if we can't go deeper than that somehow. And I want everybody to be really clear. I am not the answer man. I'm really not. So don't treat me like I am, because there's plenty of stuff I just have absolutely no idea about. And, I set out to teach certain things, to do audiobooks, to try to supplement them with a few comments and this and that, and to tie it into whatever current events I can. That absolutely does not mean that I'm a walking encyclopedia. Far from it. So there's plenty of stuff I just don't know and or don't care at this point in time because it just hasn't, crossed my path. That's not to say that I wouldn't care if I, knew more about XYZ, but like I said, I'm just not a walking encyclopedia. So I guess that's the thing. If I'm going to be doing this like 3 or 4 hours a week, we're going to run out of stuff really, really fast. So if I guess, I'll read through the chat as always on stream. And I guess if you all can think of stuff that is less phrased about what's my take on such and such, I don't want the stream to just be about my take on stuff. I don't know. We do that on the channel. And on the channel, I carefully pick topics that I think are interesting and that I actually have something to say about. That's not necessarily the case in the live stream. So, anyway, we've already hit a few points where I either didn't have anything to say or honestly just because I'm a human being and, well, particularly on Saturday, I was kind of fatigued. I just didn't feel like answering some of the questions, which is also going to come up. So, when you all hear a question, I guess, or hear a topic come up, like, I guess what I'm saying is you don't necessarily have to put questions, but just raise topics or things you've always wondered about or share a story, and then we can talk about it, whatever it is. But, having like 30 anonymous monkeys in the chat, like grabbing onto me and shaking me down for my opinion, that gets old fast. And I don't want this to be this debate bro thing where I'm just like lord of opinions. That's not really what we're going for. So if you have topics or stories, and again, like, share something. Maybe you don't have the time or maybe the interest or, even just enough content to set up a channel. But you can, if you have an idea on something, like come in and share it here, and then maybe we can talk about it, because I'm not more important than you all. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. There's 34 people in here, I think, plus me. So I'm sure you all have a lot to add, and I guess I'd like to use this time a little bit more to highlight that. Obviously, I'm facilitating. I'm trying to be somewhat knowledgeable. But anyway, if you're just joining us, this is sort of, moving in a slightly different direction. So, all right. Let's see what we got. I've been rambling or whatever I've been doing for about 12 minutes. Going through the chat, Blenchvik says hi. Consent Van says I'm in here. Hello to you both. Dan says hi, still heading home from work. All right. And Mikey says, saw someone say NATO is good, actually, with zero irony. Yeah, this was something I think was controversial because Trump said that he wanted to get the U.S. out of NATO. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I seem to remember that coming up. And people are, of course, like, he's working for Putin, he's working for Putin. First of all, I don't know what the relationship is between Trump and Russia, but it's official government policy, as far as I'm aware, that Russia is not an enemy. I think they call it an adversary or something like that. Like, they're not an enemy. They haven't, attacked anybody, but the U.S. doesn't consider them a friend for whatever reason. And to be honest, I'm thinking back over the last 20 years or so that I've been paying attention to politics, just trying to think up a reason why that is the case. And I'm drawing a blank, to be totally honest. Russia's always had this sort of odd place in things, beloved by paleocons, has that kind of nationalistic thing going on. I remember back in the 2000s when there really wasn't much of an online left, so there was kind of more just sort of libertarians and, conspiracy people and whatever. And seeing Putin would be real popular with the anti-New World Order crowd. New World Order is, of course, it's like a Rorschach blot. It's whatever you want it to be, kind of. But it can be a buzzword for lots of different things. And, it seemed to be among the right-wing populists at that time, 15 years ago, really, really popular, like Putin is anti-NWO. I remember that. And I just always remember going like, it's just another capitalist country, you know. They don't seem to be in the graces of the rest of the capitalist imperialist world, but trying to say that they're somehow like against the system, I'm not really seeing it. If somebody wants to make a case for that, go ahead, I guess. So anyway, opening one thread on that so far. Moving on, but I mean, and just to wrap up, that was again out of a comment about NATO, and NATO is good actually. Many people, not just Donald Trump, have, and again, I'm not sure what Trump's point actually was, not to ascribe this point to him, but people have made the point of like, okay, NATO was there during the Cold War, which arguably the Cold War shouldn't have happened, but NATO was basically a Cold War organization. Why does it still exist? And again, this is the imperialist world. It exists to defend the imperialist world against any threats, perceived or real. They can't admit that though, because they don't want to talk about imperialism. But yeah, it's a good point. Why does NATO exist at this point? I mean, you can say certain alliances make sense because the two world wars really tore apart Europe and other parts of the world, and were hugely destructive. And capitalists have sort of learned to get along with each other a lot better since then. So, I'm sure they'd like to prevent war if possible. But, then again, we're talking about capitalism, and capitalism is full of crises. It has built-in stress points, major fault lines, contradictions that can't run out without some kind of a conflict emerging eventually. And world wars are, one example of that. We haven't had World War III has been predicted for a long, long time. People talked about it really, I mean, from the end of, from World War II onwards, like when's World War III going to be? And it hasn't happened yet. And it's kind of, a fluke almost, it seems like, with how many wars there were prior to that. But, all right, so continuing with the comments, Dan says, I'm going to have to miss the beginning. All right, well, it's being recorded, so you can catch it on YouTube. Adobe Cult says, evening comrades. Nora Borealis says, howdy. Eternus 1022 says, hi all. And Nora says, hell yeah. I think that was in relation to something I was saying at the beginning of the stream. Consent Van says, our stream, y'all are the best. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, trying to just make this a little less one-sided as far as like, obviously it's my voice being recorded here, but I'd like to be more of a facilitator rather than, just here's what to think, people. By the way, go, help with, I'm getting ratioed over here. Help me out. I'm not trying to make this about that, but I guess more of a study group, whatever it is, we do videos up on the channel. That's obviously a good basis for getting started with discussion. If you all have things you want to, share, thoughts you have about that maybe you shared, maybe you didn't in the YouTube comments, bring them in here. We'll talk about them. I mean, I sometimes do the like S4A mailbag or like Ask S4A, S4A responds kind of videos that will be in response to questions. Like, for example, after I did the first Jimmy Dore video, there was a lot of controversy about that. A lot of like right-wing populists were kind of shook up. And so I did a few follow-up videos just responding to the comments. I can definitely do that here on stream. And in some ways, that's actually easier for me. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be all about what's my opinion about XYZ. So, Mikey Makes Mistakes says, you get invited to join the program, then you have to provide information to them. Okay, so that's talking about the Twitch affiliate thing. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what works out there. The streaming is at least, going along. So, Ediov comments on Donbass. I guess you missed the earlier part. We'll come back to that later. Ediov says, I support Putin's decision and I think Russia should take Kiev. So, to be totally honest, I haven't looked at the news at all since Saturday, so I don't really know what's going on. Adobe Cult says, yikes. Kim Jong chills, yo, I made it on time. You sure did. Ringo says, hi. Comrade Charmander, solidarity with the New People's Republics. Zaster Within, long live the DPR and the LPR. Egalitarian Comrade says, "What's up?" with many vowels. And an alligator face? I can't see what that is. That is an enthusiasm. That is real enthusiasm. That's an excited person. So, Adobe Cult says, "Love it when a People's Republic is announced by a foreign anti-communist power." You all are going to have to bring me up to speed because, like I said, I really don't know. I haven't read the news in like 4 days. So, Zaster Within, it's international recognition every country needs. Nora Borealis says, "Had to leave work early today because I got heated with a coworker who wanted to do a Ukraine display at work." Really? Where do you work that people are doing, like, was it like a diorama? Like, was this like a show and tell? Where at work were people doing Ukraine displays? That's interesting. Consent van, hit the back walls of ideology. You know, I don't even know what to say. Kim Jong Chills, "You end up finding any good Marxist books on 1970s China?" Not since Saturday. I have done literally zero in relation to this channel since the last stream. Charmander, they're anti-fascists. Screw off lib siding with fascists. Okay. Just to remind everybody, let's not get into bickering in the comments because it makes them a lot harder to read. And it's just annoying for everyone. And then I start banning people so that we keep the comments going in some kind of a, forwardly direction. Nora Borealis, "So thankful to be around people that, believe me, haha." Adobe Cult, "Where are the concrete people's movements?" This is a reply to Zaster Within, because Zaster Within had been saying it's international recognition. And then Adobe Cult responded by saying, "Where are the concrete people's movements in these countries? Where are the words from these organizations themselves?" It's just literally Putin pointing at things. So, fair enough point. Nora Borealis, "The DPR released their takes yesterday." All right. Is that takes or tanks? What's going on in the DPR? So Charmander says, "Adobe, they were declared in 2014 after the fascist coup." What are you talking about? Babel Boom is writing in German. Dan says, "What about organizing for survival, like farming and feeding and housing leftists?" Yeah, this is a topic quite far removed from Ukraine and Russia that comes up from time to time. This has been a thing on the left for a while. It's sort of like food politics and stuff like that. It's not exactly revolutionary, but I think it shouldn't entirely be discounted because in the imperial core, you do what you can. If the masses are not, up and around for revolution, the rest of us either have to go somewhere else or we have to kind of make do doing something. And some people have gotten into building local food resiliency networks so that Monsanto doesn't control absolutely every last thing. I think that this is some steps beyond just lifestyleism or something like that. I think that there is some merit to that. The problem with housing now, if you look at the housing prices, I did a video on this recently. Housing prices went up 30% in a year last year. 30%. So it's everything from the cost of timber and other building materials to they're not building enough houses to the wealth inequality has been growing and the people who actually have money have been buying up houses, not for personal use. So there's it's a shitstorm in the housing world. So housing is definitely an issue. Ultimately, I think people just starting communes and farms and things, they're pretty vulnerable. Because you get big enough and then it turns into Waco or something. You become a target, I guess what I'm saying. Not to try to do a one-to-one with leftists and the, David Koresh people, because there are a lot of other things going on there too, as far as it being a religious cult and different things like that. I mean, even if you had like a healthy, cooperative, voluntary situation that was not some kind of weird sex cult, like the Koresh thing, to my understanding was. Even then, I mean, you just become such a massive target. Like the locals get suspicious of you and everything else. So I don't know if people have examples of good projects beyond just things like community gardens, victory gardens, stuff like that. Do share them and see maybe a video will come out of it or something. But yeah, opening that thread, I think that's a good topic. Nora Borealis says the DPR and the Communist Party of the DPR both released statements supporting Putin's move. So if people want to discuss this further or have me read something, I did enable links in the chat. So go ahead and post a link. I mean, keeping in mind, I'm not going to be able to read like 10 different things. So, choose, be selective, choose wisely and carefully. Yeah, so Siparuski, what's my opinion? Yeah, this was from when I was talking about that, and it was humorous. Zaster Within, the Communist Party Ukraine is literally outlawed in the rest of Ukraine. So yeah, good point. I mean, this is the situation in a lot of places. It's not the situation in the U.S. I mean, Communist Party U.S. has its issues. It's not outlawed, although the amount of presence they have, it might as well be. Happy to open that thread and have a discussion there if anybody has thoughts one way or the other on that. Siparuski says I just came in. Yeah, so, I mean, we've been going for 26 minutes. Probably you're caught up by now. Dan says housing continues to just go up like crazy. It really does. And every, realtor, real estate prediction website that I have read, really everything is like they're expecting prices to keep going up and up. I keep coming back to this. Like, I'm not an economist. I understand a certain amount of economic, issues and terms and elements and principles. I'm not an economist in that it's not a passion for me to like look at the stock market daily and look at all kinds of other charts of economic indicators and to really track that stuff. I didn't go to school for investing and stuff like that, so I do not have an inside track on that. I tend to be more on the social impact side of economics. Like I said, it's not a passion for me to like wake up in the morning and go read economic charts. But everything I've seen, I mean, the prices of everything have just been going up and up and up and up. And you look at, like, for example, prior to 2008, they were doing the exact same thing. And then things crashed in a big way in 2008. Prices are way higher now. Same charts that all crashed in 2008 are way higher. Like, I want to say off the top of my head, double in many ways than they were in '08. Which tells me we need to have a crash like that, or this system is heading for a crash like that. And in the meantime, like, I think things have already gotten past the unaffordable mark for most people, like definitely in housing, but also many other things. I mean, every time I come home from like a, grocery trip, it's over $200 every single time. And I'm not buying luxury items. Like, I do a lot of my own cooking. I get a lot of raw ingredients, so that's the cheapest you can get. If you buy a lot of packaged food, that's going to be more expensive because you're paying for more of the labor on the prep. I'm buying like bags of rice and like, cans of tomatoes and stuff like that. And I can't seem to spend under $200. So that's another thing. But Joe Biden has made this sort of weird thing about meat prices. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, Mr. Biden, because in case he listens to the stream, meat is not the only thing where prices are like out of control. It's like this weird little, the world is burning down, but he's playing with like a miniature firefighting set in a little like sandbox on his desk. It's like, we actually need attention to this whole system. So, anyway, I was talking with somebody who was a bit more into econ stuff on Twitter last week or so, and they were showing me some different charts. And one of the things I found super interesting is how they started using reserves. This is the like $4.2 trillion that people often refer to. This was not really a thing before 2008. So again, I'm not into most of the nitty gritty of things, and I freely admit that. But it seems to me like this is how they're propping up the system to prevent another 2008. Where I'm going with this is, or it's one of the tools anyway that they're using to prevent 2008 from happening again. Another major crash, which we know capitalism just does this. It crashes periodically, like once a decade at least. We're overdue for that. It started to happen in 2020. They staved it off. Prices temporarily crashed and then started to rise. They have to come down at this point. The problem is they're not regulating anything. So when things come down, they probably will come down catastrophically, throwing millions of people out of work, and it's just going to be a disaster. So, as much as they're trying to prevent line from going down as it did in 2008, now line has gone up so far, nobody can fucking afford anything. So what happens then in a year or two when people have really been feeling this for a long time and people's situations get a lot more desperate? So anyway, leave thoughts in the comments. I'm happy to keep that going on. Adobe Cult says Putin is an anti-communist and an imperialist. Jesus Christ. And Charmander says Adobe, imperialism isn't a verb liberal. All right, let's stop with the liberal. This is not really helpful, and keep it out of the fucking chat. So, and people saying, no, Russia's not imperialist. So let me say this. I have seen people splitting hairs in various articles about, is Russia imperialist? And yes, as Charmander says, imperialism is a stage of capitalism. Zaster Within continues, so this is relevant to what I was about to say. One, I don't think Russia is imperialist. It's mostly a commodity exporter with no relevant financial sector. Two, Putin is bourgeois, represents the bourgeoisie, I guess you could say, but what is an anti-communist? He does not outlaw the Communist Party at all. I think that's a stretch, because we know, honestly, I didn't come prepared for conflict today, but that's a really stupid statement. All capitalists are anti-communist. Really. So outlawing the Communist Party, that's a particular anti-communist step. This is basic class interests. If you're for capitalism, you are anti-communist. That's just how it works. What steps you take in order to ensure that communists do not gain an advantage over you, that is going to vary from place to place, but all capitalists are anti-communist. You know that. Come on. Keep that out of my comments. Seriously. Yeah. So as far as this thing about, is Russia imperialist? Are we trying to say that the bourgeois-led government of Russia, which took power after a counter-revolution against the world's leading socialist power, are we saying this is somehow like a national liberation movement? Question, does it still have positive aspects? When capitalism rises out of feudalism, there are positive aspects to it in terms of preventing national oppression and repressing the most reactionary and backward elements of feudalism. If Russia is not imperialist today, it's merely on track to becoming imperialist and competing for the role. Russia had, and all of the USSR, ex-USSR countries, experienced a massive decline in lifespan, living standard. Their economy died after the USSR was destroyed. So it's had setbacks. And clearly Russia is not in good standing or on good terms, I tried to say both at the same time, with the established imperialist West. So that's not to say it doesn't have aspirations to become that, though, because you either have aspirations to become socialist or you have aspirations to keep maintaining and expanding capitalism, which, as we know, becomes imperialism. So what does this mean in terms of communist support? I think that this is a major error a lot of people are making. When Germany, and okay, we can talk about different measures of, exporting capital and things like that, but when Germany was the upstart and the up-and-coming power alongside the UK and France, we had world wars of them trying to sort out who was going to be king of the roost. So anyway, I'm happy to hear your thoughts on this. And whatever stage Russia's capitalism is at currently, again, you either maintain and expand capitalism and become imperialist, because once your domestic market is set, you have nowhere to go but international. Or it becomes transformed through revolution into socialism. So this kind of position of just Russia is the good capitalist, I want people to talk to me about that, because I don't think it's really supportable unless you've got some really specific framing for me. So let's hear it anyway. Warped Potato says, wow. Well, wow to you too. I'm not sure what that was in reference to. So Adobe Cult says, Putin literally spouted anti-communist talking points in his speech yesterday. I mean, again, capitalism is fundamentally anti-communist. I don't know why this is strange. Zaster within. So does literally every other non-socialist leader in the world. Now you're getting it. Okay. Nora Borealis says, I think the reason that the people of the DPR and LPR want Russian help is simply because no one else is listening or helping them. Okay, that could be. Mikey makes mistakes. From what I understand, Trump dislikes NATO and NAFTA, but for the wrong reasons. We don't really know. I mean, do we know Trump's reasons for virtually anything? Or, I mean, is Trump sincere about anything he says? That's like another issue dealing with Trump, which hopefully, Trump himself is gone now, although he may be running again. That seems to be the rumor. But, this is just about fascism generally. You look back to, like, Mussolini, for example. They would make promises like, we're going to do X, Y, Z for the workers. The whole thing was, national interest, national safety, national security, national protection. The nation has to come together in a class collaborationist way. So we're going to rein in the bourgeoisie a little bit, but we're also going to, control what kind of unions workers can join and whatever else. So then what they actually did in practice, it was just the big bourgeoisie in disguise. So, when fascists make promises, don't take them at their word, I guess. I'm going to skip a few comments that are just fighting, but seriously, don't do this. Babble Boom, Ukraine has outlawed the Communist Party, Russia has not. Take a hit of copium. So, again, I'm way behind on the chat, but if you keep posting comments that are not actually having a discussion, but being rude to other people, then you're going to get kicked out of the chat. I just want to tell you that now. So I would disagree with your basic position there. So you're saying that because Ukraine, Babble Boom, has outlawed the Communist Party and Russia has not, therefore Russia is pro-communist. So riddle me this. If Russia is so pro-communist, why isn't the fucking government communist? Just a thought. Okay, I'll leave it to you to come up with an answer on that. Let's see. Skipping through some more infighting comments. All right. So I think a few people need to be kicked out of the chat for a while, because when you just start insulting each other, I'm not really interested in hosting this in a group discussion, all right? I'm looking at Charmander. I'm looking at anybody else just throwing insults at people. Don't do it. Siporiski, Putin is being pushed by the Communist Party of Russia, which is getting more powerful. I need some. I need some receipts. I need evidence there. Give me Exhibit A that Putin is being pushed by the Communist Party of Russia, and point B, which is getting more powerful. Can you demonstrate that with some high quality evidence? That sounds kind of like half theory, half wishful thinking to me personally. I haven't seen anything to that effect. Zaster says Putin is not a czarist. Within Russian politics, he is quite center. The LDPR is more czarist. They are much more right than Putin. These are, okay. I mean, based on what's been written, these are opinions. There's not a lot supporting these. I can't comment on that. So, okay. So, a couple people are getting kicked from chat because stop fucking arguing with each other. It's really annoying, okay? Like, imagine you were sitting in a classroom and, you know, there was a discussion being had. You can't just start, like, yelling at people. It's super fucking obnoxious to everybody else that is around there. So, I'll let you back in eventually, but I want to keep scrolling through this thread without this going on. All right. Spider Dijanog, I don't know how to pronounce that. Dijanagog. Anyway, the text is really small. Dijanog. Oh, Spider Dijon OG. It's hard to tell. Nothing's capitalized. Anyway, the comment is, hi chat, and hi S4A. Well, hello to you too. All right. Kim Jong Chills, you ever think about how the Westboro Baptist Church was obviously a CIA op to keep Americans patriotic? I don't know if it's to keep Americans patriotic, but I think you better believe that the entire megachurch scene is entire. So not the Westboro Baptist Church specifically, who I'm not a big fan of religion, and you know, in general, I think it does much more harm than good in society. I think that for the good parts, we could definitely substitute secular or at least some kind of spiritual substitutes, which are not grounded in like thousands of years of fairly not so good traditions. So yeah, I'm not in favor of religion in general. I think that it does a lot of harm, and whatever good that it does can be done in other ways that don't entail all the harm. But yeah, the Westboro Baptist Church specifically, I mean, I remember thinking, at least they're consistent. Like, it's a repulsive message, but I think in many ways that actually is the message of religion. So I think that the Westboro Baptist Church, in a way, have it right, but only because religion has it wrong. I mean, that said, just the entire church thing that is so prevalent, particularly throughout the more socially backward parts of the United States. I mean, religiosity is correlated with many factors, like lower literacy, higher teenage pregnancy, like pick a social statistic, and it tends to go in the wrong direction correlated with higher religiosity. Again, I do not think that this is a benefit for society. It's not to say you can just outlaw religion. That said, I do think that society should be ushered away from religion as fast as humanly possible. That's my take. But yeah, I mean, as far as CIA and the megachurches, that I'm going to write that down because that is worth doing some videos on and some research. I have read things to that effect, and I think doing some videos on that would indeed be helpful. I mean, first of all, just the relationship between anti-communism, fascism, and the Christian right, it's enormous. So, yeah, you better believe that there's links there. All right. Keep going. Mikey says I'm a Twitch affiliate myself. Well, that is very good. All right. There's a lot of comments going back and forth. I really can't read because they're just sort of fragments to other people. Mikey says, Ukraine breakaway states are called People's Republic of Place. The ideology of the states isn't 100% known to me. I would suspect, Mikey, you're not alone in that. I suspect a lot of people here probably don't know what the ideology of those states is. If anybody has anything to that effect, please do share it. I'll eventually get to it in the comments. Otherwise, beating other people up in the chat over speculation is just fucking idiotic. But anyway. Dope Wizard Comrade says, discussions would get a little crazy debating politics while working retail around Bernie 2016. I don't even discuss politics in the trade I work now. Yeah, I remember discussing politics at work around Bernie 2016. Most of the people were pretty much on the same page. I mean, there were some Clinton people. One in particular was really diehard Clinton. And the sort of amusing part to me was, we got along otherwise. But this person was diehard Clinton and just could not substantiate it at all. Just could not back up at all. People would ask a question, well, why such and such? And they would just be like, I just feel strongly that. I was like, all right, well, it's your feeling. And it's not supported by any factual evidence, but noted it is your feeling. Yeah, things could get heated, I'm sure. It's just funny to I don't know, presentations on the Ukraine, that is different. All right, there's some other conversation going on in the chat I'm just not privy to. What do we got? Another communist Westerner, cringe. All right. Thank you for your first and final appearance here in the S4A chat. Goodbye. Where are we now in the chat? Because it just jumped. Okay. Mezer says, housing has been a major problem for over 12 years. Sad face. And now with core and corporations, corps, and other wealthy individuals buying up all the housing, prices will continue to rise. Yeah. Can anybody find anywhere that the Democratic Party is even mentioning this? Because I don't remember this being anywhere in even the absolute most watered down and weakest quote-unquote leftist discourse. And it absolutely needs to rise to one of the top three issues that get one of the top three issues that get discussed. I don't even hear this on the radar of any sort of mainstream quote-unquote left or resistors or anything. And, we know a lot of those people are blue MAGA cult, but I mean, they also kind of set the tone for semi-apolitical but slightly left-leaning people. And I just don't think anybody's talking about it at all. All right, so let's see. Kim Jong Chills, hey, someone brought up Pro Cult's documentary the other day, and I can confirm that it's pretty fucking good. There's only so much you can cover in 2 hours, but I thought it was pretty good. So that's good. Yeah, somebody did mention that. It came up. I'm subscribed to them, so it came up in the YouTube recommendations. I did grab it to watch later. I have not had a chance to watch that yet. So good to know that the Pro Cult fascism documentary is pretty high quality. I mean, they seem again. This is not a total endorsement because I'm not really that familiar with them. However, in glancing at their stuff, it seemed to be pretty high quality as far as I could tell. But then I have not gone into it in depth. So, Cad Whalen says, "Hi S4A, neo-Nazis harassed a local leftist library in Providence, Rhode Island, last night, and I feel very anxious about it." I mean, deservedly, that is unsettling. What happened exactly? Kim Jong Chil says, community workout groups, stay healthy with the comrades. Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing to do. I mean, not everybody likes exercising, but it is a good thing to do. If you have local comrades you've met through an org or whatever. This is why I'm always saying just get out there and join something, even if it's not really perfectly aligned ideologically, because probably you're going to meet somebody else for whom it's not a perfect fit ideologically, and then maybe the two of you strike something up and start something up 6 months from now. But yeah, it's people to maybe work out with, or have potlucks with, or whatever. It's good to just socialize. Don't be online all the time. It's not good. So again, when there's a troll, don't feed the fucking troll. Okay, just I will ban them. Ignore them. Do not feed them. Talking to Siporowski, arguing with the troll. Okay, just don't feed the fucking troll. I need to remember to mention that at the beginning of these videos, but then again, people, sort of trickle in over the 10 minutes in the beginning. However, ground rules, don't feed the fucking trolls. Miro says it's outlawed in the state of Texas, communism, such that there is a law that no communist that seeks to overthrow the USA government can hold an elected office, or something like that. I guess the good thing is that not much would really probably come from communists like holding elected office, so, fair enough, I guess. That's probably where, no more than 5% of our energy should be going to anyway. Okay, more fighting with the troll. Skipping over that. And, alright, lots of... No, you brain-dead moron. Cope and cry, libtard. Honestly, do you get anything out of typing these comments? Because no one gets anything out of reading them. Nothing. Nothing at all. Stop typing them. Stop feeding the troll. Alright. Red Wizard. All over the U.S., rents are rising more. Yes, rents are actually more expensive than mortgages right now. The problem is that qualifying for a mortgage is difficult. There are a lot of things that they factor in, and the banks have to follow the post-2008 Dodd-Frank legislation, which says it has all kinds of stipulations in it which make it harder for the banks to get the overall economy into the situation where there is the kind of housing bubble that contributed to the 2008 crash. However, it doesn't really do anything to making sure people can still get housing that we need. So, again, priorities of the U.S. capitalist government, protecting the stock market, and, did you, no longer qualify for housing? Oops, oh well, next. That's pretty much the way that they handle that. Fred Engels, Russia is not the major contradiction today. Yeah, we're not talking about major contradictions, though. That's not what we're talking about. Continuing, the American imperialism is. Every beneficial gain for America is a major setback for the international proletariat. Thus, gains for American imperialism have to be opposed at all costs. Yeah, I don't think anyone's arguing that. The question was more about Russia itself. So, because this is where I think some of the, left-right alliance is being forged, is around support for Russia that goes far beyond U.S. anti-imperialism. Far beyond. So I think it's important to have that discussion as well. Anyway. I'm not even going to go into the rest of it, but the comparison of, Germany, there's only so far you go with that. Again, fight the rich, not their wars. Oppose capitalism, and as you begin to rank them, problems do start to creep in. Chim Jong Chills, I'm getting priced out of Nashville. Who the fuck wants to pay this much to live in fucking Nashville? I think it's just everywhere, the housing market. I think it's just everywhere. I saw an article that was housing is virtually free in rural Kansas. It's okay, great. So I can buy a house for $100,000, which is not exactly dirt cheap, in the middle of nowhere. Awesome. The problem? Why would I want to live in the middle of nowhere? How would I have a life at all in the middle of nowhere? So, yeah. Let's see. Warp Potato, S4A, I probably need mods anyway. No, I don't need mods. There's 30 people here. There's no reason why people can't just fucking not feed trolls. Okay? So anyway, More infighting that I am reading through. Western American left so obsessed with proving anti-imperial cred, they will take sides with the lesser of two assholes, like socialists taking side in July 1914. Yeah, so, the issue in 1914, the beginning of World War I, was telling, it was with the Second International telling workers to defend the fatherland. So to support, quote, their own bourgeoisie. So it's a little different because you have like Western leftists supporting other capitalist governments that aren't, quote, their own bourgeoisie. And hang on a second. All right, just a lot of noise outside the window here. So it's slightly different, but yeah, it's something I think people need to take a closer look at. So, Siporiski, you can't. Okay, so no, Siporiski, I think you're just trying to justify fighting with the troll. So, timeout. There we go. You know, this is the S4A chat. I don't know how other people's chats work, but here's how this chat works. Don't start fighting with people, or you get tossed. I'm sure that other chats don't work this way, but I'm telling you, this is how the S4A chat works. There we go. Dirk Richter. Yeah, I assume you mean me. S4A has been developing this concept a lot. I hadn't heard before about World War being the consumption of the overproduction of weaponry, and also a way to clear society out of its people and infrastructure to allow for reinvestment, which conclusion hypnotizes and terrifies me. Okay, I guess you didn't mean me. I'm not sure who you're referring to there. But yeah, I mean, the surplus labor problem, World Wars certainly served that purpose of killing off a lot of workers that capitalists didn't necessarily have need of. Also, yes, the production of weaponry is one of the only things keeping the U.S. economy together. So honestly, you take that away, you would have to completely like redo the U.S. economy. And it's funny because conservatives used to complain. I mean, anti-socialists of any sort of stripe used to complain about programs in the New Deal being like make work because they did their own sort of the hell's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, they did their own version of like capitalist headed quasi-socialism, social democracy that did their own version of like the right to work, like the right to a job. And so they did a bunch of government programs like the Conservation Corps and things like that. And then conservatives would get mad that it was like make work. It's like, oh, well, that's not jobs that actually need to be done. You're just having people like dig holes to dig holes just so that they can get a paycheck. And I mean, first of all, it's like, why build civilization if not to actually have everybody have a good standard of life, whether you're digging holes or not? But they used to feel justified in calling this make work, like the capitalist for-profit economy. That was legitimate, and anything that the capitalists would do, that was legitimate because it's for-profit, and therefore it was work that really needed to be done because it was stuff people would pay for, and it would be profitable. But now, look at what the U.S. is doing with its military. You want to talk about make work? I mean, yeah, we can say that it's to enforce U.S. global dominance and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is, it's not there for its stated purpose. It's there to take over the world. But they don't say that it is. So you want to talk about make work. Why do you have fields of aircraft that have never been used when ostensibly they're just for, national defense? You don't need any of this for national defense. It's clearly make work, but for capital. And just to keep capital dominant. So it's just funny how that kind of got turned around. So many things have been, so many radical concepts have been stripped of their radical content and then spun around in favor of the status quo. Libertarianism, I would say in general, is like taking certain forms of anarchism and then spinning it around into crypto-fascism. This is the essence of fascism, is taking class struggle, taking radical discourse, and then spinning it in favor of the status quo. Again, what's going on with the military-industrial complex, arguably yet another version of this. But anyway. So Fred Engels, true, S4A doesn't have to read every comment either, just ones that at me or just the latest ones. Well, that's not how we're doing it, okay? I don't know how else to explain this. This is how we're going to be doing it. Maybe you weren't here at the beginning when I was mentioning that we're doing these live streams a little bit differently, because I'd like to do more facilitation than just have people shake me down for my take on various subjects. That gets boring really fast. To be honest, I was bored with it by the end of the stream, if not sooner, last Saturday. So, no, I announced in the beginning we're doing this a little bit differently. Basically, don't type a comment unless you would like it read out, shared with the whole group, etc. I don't mind if people do at each other and have a conversation going. Just understand it's going to be read out. So I'm sure it'll take a little while for people to get used to this, but get used to it you will, because this is the way we're doing it now. All right. So Based God Flashy says, before I graduated college, I worked unloading grocery trucks, and my manager literally thought Biden was a communist, and her reason was he wants health care. I laughed out loud. Yeah, a lot of people really have no fucking clue what they're talking about when it comes to politics. They just listen to Fox News. It is like one of the top cable networks and has been for a long time. And, I mean, there's millions of people watching that shit. They're not getting any smarter or better informed watching it. Just the opposite. In fact, it used to be, like, kind of uncommon. Conservatives used to have, like, sort of a different demeanor prior to Fox News. I mean, yes, there would be individual, personally abusive conservatives for sure. But I remember, seeing family who previously were like really just sort of buttoned down, sedate, and, could be condescending or whatever, but, very deeply conservative or whatever. Then started watching Fox News, and the whole style changed. And they picked it up. They're just sort of screaming at people when they disagreed with them. And this seemed to be directly correlated to watching Fox News. So it isn't just really bad, talking points and pieces of misinformation that are being picked up by people. It's also style. I know you weren't talking about style, but it's a point that came to mind. But yeah, I mean, that stuff has influence, and it's like he wants communist healthcare. Really, the U.S. is an exception for not having some kind of a national healthcare system. I would have probably challenged her to find a country that didn't have some kind of national healthcare. That was pretty standard by the middle of the 20th century to have that. The U.S. is a fascist country that is run by corporations, and that's the only reason that we don't have it. Actually, though, funny enough, I'm going to make a note of this too, because this was in one of my early show notes, and I never wound up actually doing a video on it. But one of the reasons that the U.S. doesn't have national health care, they didn't do it in the first round of the New Deal, in the 30s. However, there was a plan for the U.S. to have national health care. The AMA, American Medical Association, they did a grassroots campaign in the 40s. So basically it was like they did the first round of the New Deal, and then, FDR died, and then Truman comes in, and there were still like New Deal proposals on the table that they just hadn't implemented yet. Anyway, the AMA wrote to all of their member doctors individually and they did a grassroots campaign to vote out every congressperson and senator that was supportive of the National Health Care Plan. I can't remember the name of it, like that specific bill, whatever it was. And they did, because they told the AMA members, again, individual, wealthy, petty bourgeois, professional class doctors, they, and, people are like, whether you're in the bourgeoisie or relationship to capital, blah, blah, blah. The reason that a lot of people become doctors is because they're from a bourgeois family and they just don't feel like going onto the stock market, but they still wanted to make a lot of money. It's a very typical thing for people from very wealthy backgrounds to go be a doctor. So there was a lot of that. Very conservative people. Were there also some radicals that managed to get into med school and whatever? Yeah, definitely. But by and large, this was a way for people who came from wealth to stay wealthy. Anyway, so the AMA lobbied all of their doctors to go and participate in this anti-national healthcare thing, saying that it was a communist takeover of healthcare and all that kind of thing. And it worked. They got really militant. And this was also the time period when the Republicans, for one of the only times that they did this, controlled Congress. And I believe it actually was as a result of this effort. That was actually when the Taft-Hartley Act came in. So, this can have far-reaching consequences, but yeah, it came out of sort of the proponents of the National Healthcare Bill thought that it was like a shoo-in, it was in the bag, and then the AMA lobbied their petty bourgeois, wealthy doctor members to oppose it, and to everyone's surprise, they really, really dug in and it worked. So anyway, I don't think I've mentioned that on the channel before, so. Dirk Richter said, this one, it seems Pro-Cult had a line about mass death becoming a piece of capitalist development, but I couldn't parse the meaning. I need to rewatch it. Were you talking about in the fascism documentary that I keep hearing is good? Because I could definitely see that. Dirk Richter also asks me, top 3 books that I think that Western leftists, communists in particular, but maybe all tendencies, are in sore need of engaging with, like most bang for your buck. And I have no idea. The top 3 books that Western leftists, communists in particular, but maybe all tendencies. So I think part of it's a good question, first of all. All tendencies is hard because, if you've got like a Jimmy Dore right-wing sockdem edging into libertarianism, but still thinks he's left, I mean, do you mean them? Because they need the whole kit and caboodle. I mean, they need the works. But you say communists in particular. I mean, I'd say people calling themselves communists they've probably read some books. Let's put it that way. Probably. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's hard to say. The thing that I have pinned is State and Revolution. That's pinned on Twitter. It's pinned on YouTube because I think that is like kind of if you were to compile the most frequently asked questions that you just hear from the Western left that tends to lean into anarchism and tends to be really confused about the nature of the state. I think that State and Revolution is definitely in the top 3. I think that particularly for all of the kind of anarchist people or also just sockdems who are confused. So there's different confusion. Anarchists are confused about the state, period. They think that the state has no function after capitalism. That is incorrect. And then sockdems think that we're just somehow changing the bourgeois government without a revolution. That is also incorrect. So I think that the State and Revolution and any similar works, I mean, Lenin also wrote one just called, well, there's War, actually, what is it? I'm blanking on the name. It's War and, I think it's War in the State. There's another one just called The State. Anyway, where he kind of goes over some of these topics. The State and Revolution is a reliable one, and I think people are likely to read it because they've heard of it, and then if they read it, they're like, oh yeah, I've read that. So anyway, that's definitely number one. Beyond that, I think it really depends on the person. So that's what I think about that. Petawunya, in Arkansas, there was a law that required subversive organization members to register with the Arkansas State Police. If anybody can drop a link to that, obviously labeled as to this is that link about the Arkansas State Police, that sounds super interesting, actually. I'm writing down the Texas and Arkansas's AR laws. I think that would be that would make an interesting video. Anti-communist laws from U.S. states. Dirk Richter says, I'm going through the ML reading guide to be clear, but I guess my personal recommendation. So that was off of the what should people read more of. And yeah, I mean, State and Revolution is on that list. Actually, I have a tab open of that. Let me look, just refresh my memory, like what is on that list. Because you want to say something like Capital, which, you know, I digested Capital over many years in many bite-sized lessons, and that's how I'm planning, to present it on the channel. We're going to be doing it chapter by chapter in much the same way that I did, what's that Marx one I did recently? That I broke down. It was about 2 hours. Hold on. Looking that up too. Is it just Wage, Labor, and Capital? Anyway, I did that one. Like, that is a fair introduction. So, I mean, if people want to wrestle with that, the thing about, like, the Marxian economics underpinning all this stuff, I think not enough people are really grounded in that. So there's that. And if people are going to read anything from Marx, I would say do the economic stuff, because Lenin and others tend to pick up more on the political implications of that. And it just, you know, Lenin, you're jumping like 50, 60 years into the future in a lot of cases. So it's like a little more, the historical examples there that you're working off of, a little bit easier, I think, for people to grasp. What else? I mean, like, left-wing communism's a good one. I think, though, that's kind of better for people who are deeper into this. So, you know, and especially people coming from more of an anarchist background, that would be better. Although I think, you know, so whereas some people might not need it as much. So, yeah, anyway, you know, it's something that I think about, because I have not yet made a playlist that is like, you know, S4A's top 10 books. I'll probably do that in a few years, to be honest. So, yeah. Anyway, continuing. This isn't a Debate Bro stream. Yes, it definitely is not. And I know that that's going to take some adjustment for people. I get that that's going to take some adjustment. And, you know, I mean, there's, I would say, two types of people that are going to have a timeout from the chat. One is people who just come in and they're like, when are you going to debate such and such? I'm not really interested in having you in the chat if that's why you're coming in here. Just coming in to just like bash the audience generally. No more than if you walked into a room of 30 people and were like, hey, you all are just a bunch of liberals. You'd probably be shown the door without further discussion. So there's that type of ban, and that's a ban. Then there's timeouts, which is if you're fighting with trolls. Or, well, either fighting with trolls or other commenters. Doesn't really matter. But just fighting in general, we don't need to do that. So I get that this will take some adjustment. But anyway, the fighting with people part, I'll let you back in at the end of the chat. So you can come back again next time. And of course, you're welcome to listen. It's just trying to keep the chat a little bit more straightforward here. So yeah. Base God Flashy, I've been meeting more revisionists calling themselves ML, but saying that Lenin's theory of imperialism is outdated, but a simple read of the book tells the complete opposite story. It's never been more relevant. People trying to bring back Kautsky's theory of ultra-imperialism is worrying. So, I have not personally encountered that. I believe you, but I can't comment on it just because that's the kind of the first that I'm hearing about it. I will say though, I was thinking of doing a video, and I'm not sure if or when it's going to get to the making a video on it stage, but here, I'll post the link in the chat right now. I think I still have the tab open. There is a DSA, I want to say Radical Marxist Caucus or something. Actually, it looks like I might have closed the tab. Anyway, so it's what's his name? That Ben guy. Here, I'm just going to look it up. DSA Radical. No, maybe it's not Radical. DSA Marxist. Oh, that's what it is. Marxist Unity Group. Unity Group. So they had a recommended reading list, which I thought was kind of weird. There's like a ton of Kautsky on it. And it was just like, of all the fucking things, you're trying to rehab Kautsky. Like, what a fucking bizarre thing to do. This is going to need to be combated at some point, so I am planning on doing this. But yeah, okay. So here, I'll put the link into the chat. I think this just needs to be commented on and combated. But so it's called the Marxist Unity Group. It's marxistunity.com. This is like a caucus of DSA. And so it says at the top of the reading list, foundational reading list it's called. The following list does not represent a complete curriculum. They put curricula, but that's the plural. For an education in Marxism, it's specifically geared towards our shared views on party building and strategic orientation, and what makes those views unique as a political project within DSA. Thus, it necessarily excludes important topics such as political economy. Why would you exclude political economy? You need at least some of that. You need it. Black liberation, imperialism. So, again, I think that that's just incredibly stupid. I think that that's really, like, if there's one criticism that is levied against DSA all the time, fairly or unfairly, it's that it's a bunch of white college kids. And, like, the amount of sort of, like, casual, unconscious racism in it, even from, like, well-meaning progressive people, is extraordinary. I mean, at least as far as the reports go. So this is kind of like a common stigma thrown up against DSA. And then you're going to deliberately exclude black liberation? Psh, psh, psh. You know, that's me just smacking some sense into you. Don't do that. If you're going to put a foundational list and then specifically exclude black liberation in DSA, wrong. And then as far as imperialism, how do you attempt to be Marxist in 2022 without understanding imperialism? So anyway, we look forward to building curriculum on these and other topics that will be usable in DSA chapters. All right, so then what's actually listed? Historic origins of the Marxist program. There's one entry under that topic. Mike McNair, Lessons of Erfurt. I think that's a bizarre choice. This links to a Weekly Worker link. This is Communist Party of Great Britain. I think it's an odd choice. Historic Marxist programs. So then there's 4 entries under this. The first one is Karl Marx and Jules Guesde, Program of the French Workers' Party, from 1880. So you've excluded black liberation and imperialism, but you're putting the 1880 program of the French Workers' Party. Why would you do that? The Erfurt program, 1891. Russian Social Democratic Labor Party program from 1903. From 1903. Okay. The Socialist Party of America platform, 1912. Now, I do a lot of audiobooks on the channel. If you ask me to make up a list, and I do a lot of sort of random audiobooks of different things from history. But as you know, if you listen to the channel, I tend to couch it in, hey, we're reading this thing that's a little bit off the beaten path, but we read this other thing that referenced it, or I'm specifically building up to reading this, and this is part of the lead up to it. I don't really see Like, those are your historic Marxist programs, and you don't do anything past 1912? Anything? Bizarre. In the next section, contemporary analysis, Parker McQueenie, Mike McNair, and Ben Lewis. Ben Lewis has an interview on Karl Kautsky in Jacobin. And there's several Ben Lewis on Karl Kautsky in here. I think this is, like, honestly kind of a shit reading list. And that's all I'm going to say about it for right now. Like I said, I'm building up to covering this more, and I might even do all of the things that they have recommended as the foundational reading list. And then I will also do some commentary on, having gotten through all that and being familiar with other works, here's what this list is lacking, even for its stated purpose. So I don't understand that. But as far as trying to bring back Kautsky, I mean, that's something that needs to be fought, definitely. I mean, there was a time where Kautsky was good, and that's what one of the Ben Lewis articles talks about. But you can just as easily do Lenin on that. And to be fair, there is, I think, one work from Lenin in that. But the fact that there's only one, I think, is worrisome. If I had been on that committee, I definitely would not have pushed for that list. So anyway, Mayo Monkey says hi with a hamsick emoji. Zaldern. So, I don't know what. Slave for Soviet. I don't know what's going on here, but we'll sort that out later. Spider Dijon OG. Is ultra-imperialism like because of the division of the world by imperialist powers, there will be peace? I'm so the Lenin's imperialism, the highest stage, it is the last thing in the ML reading list. And there's kind of a lot I want to cover around that. So people have asked why haven't I done it yet. It's because we got to get through the rest of Anti-Düring and all of Capital and a couple other things first. When we get there, we will go through all of that. Kim Jong Chills, bro, I was in the military about 10 years ago, and the amount of waste I saw was insane. The U.S. military will shit out money for the dumbest shit, like paying $50 for a canteen, not to mention all the bombs, which are useless. Yes. What you're looking at is basically money laundering. I mean, that's what it is just absolute back scratching. You know, the $100 hammer and the $200 toilet seat that they pay to the contractors. It's all a gigantic swindle. That's what it is. I mean, and then when they actually use it, that's even worse. But half the shit they don't even use. Kim Jong Chills, I think a good intro book, the one I give to liberals, is A People's History of the U.S. Yes. I mean, I think if you're a liberal, yes. That's Howard Zinn. That is a pretty good book. I have read that. What is to be done? I don't actually like What is to be done that much. I think I found while reading What is to be done, there were just huge stretches of it that my eyes were glazing over. I think that there are parts of What is to be done that are intensely great and important and should be quoted. I also feel like there are huge stretches of What is to be done that, at least to me, I had already figured out on my own or whatever, and I just found it very dry and boring. That said, when it's good, it's really good. But I feel like, anyway, What is to be done for me is not a personal favorite. Although sections in it like have some really choice quotes that, as quotes, are some of my favorite. For me, the work is not up there. But it was really early, too. It was early in the entire struggle in Russia. So, I mean, there's relevance there, definitely. I just feel like there are more exciting topics that Lenin writes on for me. Beezus wrote back, the state is just a lecture transcript. It is. It's a lecture transcript. It's also informative. And somebody was saying that the reason that I mentioned that is somebody was saying that they found actually reading The State by Lenin more helpful than State and Revolution, because it covered some of the same subject matter, but without like all the digs on Kautsky. So some people, have a preference. I don't know, but I like State and Revolution just fine. So Dirk Richter says Lamau, State and Revolution was the first one I read for the book club. I started, and it just changed political tracks from anarchist to communist for me. But thank you. Yeah, I really want to finish part 2, the Renegade Kautsky and the Proletarian Revolution. Yeah, some people refer to the Renegade Kautsky and the Proletarian Revolution, which I also like a lot. And is also in the Basic ML Study Guide, which, by the way, I didn't come up with the Basic ML Study Guide. That is another group did that. It's called Movimiento Anti-Imperialista, which I'm not affiliated with. But I think it's a really good list. Hence, I was like, I'm going to start here because it just covers a ton of great stuff. Also, it's kind of a reference point on the internet, so if people are looking for it, they can find it there. But I was like, yeah, we're definitely going to do this. I like Renegade Kautsky and the Proletarian Revolution a lot. I will say it doesn't entirely strike me as like part 2 of State and Revolution. Like I can, I guess, see why people say that, but had I just read those two, I wouldn't have come to that conclusion myself. Tim Jong Chills, Capital is one of the hardest books to read, not an intro book at all. No, I agree. What I'm saying is that the lessons in it are top 3, you must understand these things. I agree that it is not an easy read, but that's why we're going to be doing it chapter by chapter on the channel when we get to it, because it's number 25. Actually, let me bring it up now, and I'll tell you all what is on that list. Basic, there it is. All right. So we have currently done up to On Contradiction by Mao. By the way, coming up on the channel, I'm going to be doing some more Mao coming up. So the remaining entries that I have not done on the channel yet for the basic Marxism-Leninism Study Guide: Engels, Anti-Dühring, Parts 1 and 2. Engels, Ludwig Feuerbach, and the End of Classical German Philosophy. Then Marx, Theses on Feuerbach. So because it was short, I tried to do Theses on Feuerbach earlier, and I had not read Feuerbach in the End of Classical German Philosophy, and honestly, I didn't feel it was... I'm going to redo that one after we're done with the longer work. Then Marx, Wages, Price, and Profit. Engels, Anti-Dühring, Part 2. I said Marx, Capital, Volume 1. And Lenin, Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. I know that a lot of people probably want to get to Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism first. I'm determined to do these in order, though, because, without understanding all those economic concepts from Capital, you might be sort of smiling and nodding reading some of the terms in Imperialism, and I don't want people to do that. I want when people to hear Imperialism to actually know the basic, the foundations of Marxist economics. So that's why we're going to do Capital first. And yeah, it does really need some hand-holding. I have done chapter 1 so far on the channel. It's called The Commodity, if you want to listen to it. And it's boring. I'll be totally honest. Like, the lessons he says are important. Not every chapter in that is boring in Capital. That one I think is. It's just kind of the way it is. He keeps restating things like a billion times, and it's just kind of dry. That said, it's, as far as intro concepts, I think very, very crucial, fundamental. So anyway, the reason that it's near the end of the Basic Marxism-Leninism Study Guide is that there are substitutes for it earlier. Also, the end section is economics. They don't start with economics. Excuse me. I have like a cold. My nose is kind of stuffy. I'm like talking with really kind of nasal. But the first 2 works are The 3 Sources and 3 Component Parts of Marxism by Lenin, and Karl Marx, A Brief Biographical Sketch with an Exposition of Marxism by Lenin. Some of the basic concepts are listed in there, so I think you can kind of skate by just having understood those. But anyway. Olives Black says, what's my overall opinion of Haymarket Books? I bought their annotated copy of State and Revolution, but the annotator Todd Chrétien is pretty disgusted with Lenin. Yeah, I don't know because I haven't really interacted with Haymarket Books that much. Aren't they anarchist? I remember going to them for something. Oh, it was the when I was doing the there was a book on Palestine that I got from them that they were giving away free, and then I did a couple of chapters from it, I think. At least one chapter from it. But yeah, it's really down on the USSR. I guess just to mention, like, anti-Stalinism. You know, Stalin was not like... This wasn't like a Hoxha situation where he was just sort of the guy for many years. I mean, I know that Hoxha had at least one successor. But Stalin was in there during a very difficult time of the USSR. Lenin died at a pretty young age, in his early 50s. They had just kind of finished the Civil War. I mean, the state of things, it was just in ruins and not good. And they had to do the actual work of collectivizing, you know, all the stuff that they did collectivize. They had to rebuild and then just gear up for another onslaught, World War II. So Stalin had a very difficult task. It was a very difficult position in history. Trotsky obviously thinks he could have done better, although it seems to be a lot of times a difference of method rather than outcome. But we'll be covering that more probably this summer as we do a long section on that. But yeah, you know, as far as like Stalin was out in the 50s and things went on, people sometimes act like Stalin was the sole face of the USSR and that nothing ever happened after that. I know a lot of people, you know, feel that the USSR went revisionist after that. Bottom line, though, for example, you know, I think I made the comment before about Trotskyists keeping anti-Stalinist and, you know, anti-Stalinism being a proxy for anti-communism. Like, sort of keeping that trope alive. It's like, I don't know, I mean, then there were a lot of other heads of state, like, let it go already. Let it go. Yeah. I mean, there's also, like, accounts of, like, had Lenin lived, it might have even been more, you know, like, whatever people wanted to complain about with Stalin, Lenin might have even been sort of more vigorous in his efforts. We'll never know. But anyway, it's just sort of weird how people get so hung up. I mean, I don't know. Why not get equally hung up on, like, Brezhnev? Like, whatever, you know? Just, it was a long time ago now. Like, the history of the struggles for socialism have moved on. Dirk Richter says, reading Karl Korsch has me wanting to actually return to give Capital another shot. I'm starting to finish the Marx material that isn't Capital. Yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of Marx and Engels that isn't Capital around the same time as doing Capital, so in a few months. We'll be catching up with a lot of the stuff that, because what I basically want to do is, like, by this summer, hopefully I can get that much done, but by this summer I want to have done all of the major Marx and Engels stuff. I don't really want to have to come back to that. And, you know, we're just 2 years into doing this channel now. You know, I can only do so much in a day or a week. So I've done some Marx and Engels. I've done probably a lot more Lenin. I'm going to go back and do Marx and Engels and kind of finish that off, and then finish off Lenin right after that, so that we'll be able to move on to Trotsky and Stalin and Mao and, like, all the later stuff without really having to double back so much. I'd like to be able to go more chronologically. We're going to do some Deng Xiaoping. We're going to do the whole thing. You know, these are important things to understand, and not just to get your opinion on them from, like, a soundbite that some streamer gave you, but hopefully you've actually, you know, read some of the stuff and looked at the history and studied it. So we're trying to do helping people to form their own opinions. So what else we got? Mikey says, jumping off my This Isn't a Debate Bro stream comment, the arguing with trolls thing is very, very common in those chats. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I get that this is kind of the thing. I also need people to understand that this is just not the way that S4A streams are going to be. It's not the way that S4A YouTube comment sections are either. I don't let people just get into, like, 40 reply long things of bashing and calling each other insults. I don't think that helps anyone. First of all, you got better things to do with your life than fucking doing that. Second of all, nobody else wants to read it. Like, have you ever read a thread like that and come away with it thinking, like, wow, breath of fresh air, you know, my life is just, you know, 1% better now? No, never. Anyway, Kim Jong Chills, as far as people starting out, the book that switched me to communism was Black Shirts and Reds which is an obvious choice. I'm so glad it's easy to access now. It's even on Audible. Yeah, I'm working on one of those too, because people keep asking. They want to hear me read it. So I that is in progress. It should be up pretty soon. I don't know if it's going to be this week, but probably next, unless something else major comes up. Actually, I probably would have had it done already, except I did all those trucker protest videos, which I felt was kind of an important dividing line issue to weigh in on. Spider Dijon, I read a Soviet textbook after reading Capital Volume 1 and gained more from that, to be honest. I need to reread Capital at some point. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It needs to be broken down, which I'm assuming that the Soviet textbook did. So I studied sociology in college, and we did Marx. Maybe not every program does that, but we did Marx. So, like, I kind of got a lot of Capital out of those classes. So, you know, I actually kind of was taught it in school. I didn't have to just hack it on my own, like self-study. So, but I would like to help other people. And apparently, I don't know if it's out yet, but Luna Oy and American Johnson have translated some Vietnamese ML textbooks, like that they, you know, teach Marxism to Vietnamese students, and I look forward to reading that. Does anybody know, is that out yet? So yeah, and yes, I would do an audiobook on that if they were not averse to that. Kim Jong Chills, I think the most important part of Marx's philosophy for beginners is his pillars of alienation. It's the key to so much. I think one big contribution to depression in the U.S. is people being completely alienated and directionless thanks to individualist propaganda. Yes, standing ovation for that comment, actually. So I'm going to write this down too, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it just typing in a thing or two. But I saw some social research on how over the last 20 years, people in the U.S. have fewer and fewer close friends. And it's one of those things like we all suspect, I think, but it's actually been sort of shown through data now. And what they found was, like, in the 90s, it was common for people to have 10 to 15 people who they considered close friends. And today, anybody want to guess the number? 3. So that's a substantial decline in a very important factor of people's well-being and happiness. And, you know, I think people are really going out of their minds, in part because nobody has any friends. You can talk about, for example, like the nuclear family being an insufficient social structure to raise a family and have children and, have a firm economic basis within capitalism and all that. It's just, it's too precarious. There's so much struggle, and it's just not a good basis for, like, socializing young human beings, let alone the strain on the couple and all that. Everybody comes out of it wishing that they could do more, wishing things that had been a different way. So, there's one example of, like, not having enough people around you is not a good thing. I mean, supportive people. And, having friends decline, I mean, this was always sort of the making up for that. You could find many people, it's like friends were their family because their family wasn't that great. And, but now people don't even have friends anymore, and this is like a very recent development. So I'm going to pull that up. I might do a video on that. That's a good one. Let's see. Dirk Richter was asking Chim Jong Chills, we'll read it out, thoughts on Sakai's Settlers. I hear a lot of flack directed at them in the book, but haven't finished Settlers yet. Seems like Westerners are skittish about the state of unions wanting to conserve their gains and problematic effects of the middle-class white union workers that emerged from that movement. So yeah, I mean, you can hear just on that topic of, like, unions being racist. Union laws were racist, and unions would be racist, and that's a very real thing to sort of prop up the white settler population over any other demographic, the sort of white male breadwinner thing as being, like, deserving or worthy of a slightly better standard of living, standing out from the working class. This helped to, of course, also further division among working people and prevent unity, prevent socialism. As far as Settlers itself, I mean, I have a copy of it. Going through it, this is not criticism because my opinion on it is not fully formed. I was not super impressed with the documentation on it, just the way that the sites were done and stuff. And it makes a lot of, like, I don't necessarily disagree with many of the points, but it's harder to find out which of the points I do. Like some of the points that would strike me as odd, but I might be convinced of if shown good evidence. It's hard for me to sort out which of the points that I find are odd, and that I would want to like look up where they're coming from on that. Just because of the way that it's written. So I have not given it serious time at this point. I mean, again, like I feel like basically in agreement with the basic, some of the basic conclusions, but I have not read all the way through it. But maybe we will hear Kim Jong-chil's thoughts on it later. Let's see. Actually, so the response is Kim Jong-chil's was going to ask me because they had also heard mixed things. They got halfway through and had to put it down since it was so brutal. There's some great YouTubers who do great introductions to the concept. I'll have to look it up. But I know Luna Oy and the Irish guy, I guess Marxist Paul, have great vids on it. I know that Hakeem also recommends it. Yeah, again, like I just haven't, like I've kind of skimmed through it. And I was like, this looks like a sloppily written book. Not that I disagree with it, but anyway, those are my first impressions. And it wasn't something I just wanted to dive straight into. But yeah. Dirk adds, it's very heavy at times and can feel like the kind of smirking criticism I used to make of this country, deservedly to be clear, but it is so scathing that I can see why it would take a while to digest and make it accessible to the masses or even to a Western vanguard. Well, let me say that I think even a Western vanguard should, put their big child pants on and be able to handle that, honestly. If you don't really understand how in a settler colonial country the settler population is propped up over the suppressed population, and in the U.S. we have two layers. There's the suppressed, oppressed, and genocided, railroaded native population, and then there's an imported population that was brought over just for slave labor. So I mean, the U.S. is particularly bad in that respect, and anybody not comfortable with dealing with that should probably just stick to some milder politics, honestly. Dirk reads the Marxist Unity reading list and comes to basically the same conclusion. This is not a good list. Let's see. Kim Jong-chil's adds, I tried reading Settlers a few years ago while I was new to Marxist thought, and I haven't picked it up since, but yeah, as a white American, it sure makes you feel like shit. So, I mean, for me, I didn't find it that shocking, but then again, maybe I'm just sort of numb to it because I've been sort of reading stuff like this for a long time. Like I read the Howard Zinn stuff years and years ago and all that kind of thing. So, but anyway, in Vientujutuda, it's a bunch of consonants in a row. Hello to you too. Dirk Richter said he had the same issue trying to get through Zizek's preface to a collection of Lenin's post-1917 writings. It felt like he was just talking shit about the whole project, and of course Stalin too. So I guess this is talking about Haymarket Books again. Yeah, I don't really get the appeal of Zizek. Somebody was saying he's more Hegel than Hegel. I'm like, who the fuck cares about Hegel? I guess is my take. So whatever. This to me is really less the territory of socialist revolutionaries and really more the territory of philosophy nerds. I just don't see Zizek as everything I have seen from Zizek was basically anti-Marxist. So that's kind of, again, I'm not a Zizek scholar, but nor would I want to be based on what I have seen. Anyway, which I get to a limited extent. I mean, do you though? Anyway, but it turned you off to the rest of the book. So yeah, I mean, when the introduction of the book is this is shit and terrible, why would you want to keep reading it? They couldn't have found somebody else, maybe somebody a little more enthusiastic. So anyway, Amsterdam 1999 says there's a book club. Okay, we were talking about the study guide. So and just picked up. Dirk says a library copy of Mao's On Contradiction And another, Zizek strikes again, another introduction from Zizek. Yeah, so, publishers stop having Zizek write introductions to Marxist works challenge, I guess. Seems like sort of a poor choice. But again, these are, the leading pro-Marxist voices are actually anti-Marxist. Go figure. That's the state of things today. Again, that's why we're trying to build alternatives, because if you rely on bourgeois academia and all the other things giving us these people, that's what you're going to get. Let's see. Skipping ahead a little bit. People are talking about different reading groups. On Twitch, you got the Red Army, READ. And there's a ton of book clubs if you look around. Yes, there definitely are. And I encourage people to do that, because book clubs can definitely turn into communist political groups. That is a thing that happens. So, what was the book list that I mentioned? The Basic Marxism-Leninism Study Guide. Oh, are you talking about the Marxist Unity? This is a DSA project. I put the link in there if you scroll up. Spicy Potato 15, are we memeing here? No, we're not. We're just talking. We're just talking. That's, the best way to describe it. It's actually just a chat. Imagine you were in a room with a bunch of people talking about Marxy kind of stuff. Whatever it is, whatever's on your mind. But we're not arguing, because, disagreements are one thing, but, we're trying to keep this actually like a productive, pleasant conversation. M37F says, hey, what have historical socialist movements done if they were drafted to a conflict zone? Feel that that's pretty relevant right now. That's a good question, and nothing is coming to mind. I'm not saying that there is nothing on that topic, or even that I know nothing on that topic. But nothing's coming to mind. So this is not a question for me today. If anybody else wants to answer that, I'm happy to read it out. My brain is just elsewhere. But, I guess if you can supply any more sort of details on that, just for context and like where you're coming from and asking, that might help with an answer. Good question, though. Kim Jong Chills, Engels is so much easier to read. Conditions of the Working Class is an easy read. Yeah, I think Engels is still high level. Marx, to me, is just like, he can be very funny and can use extended metaphors pretty effortlessly, but it can be like a bit tricky and somewhat convoluted at times. But he's just a brilliant guy. That said, I don't know that he was writing for just anyone. But yeah, I agree. Engels is easier to read. Long sentences, though, with Engels. I find that a lot. Like when I'm doing Engels audiobooks, I have to pause my breath, to time my breaths skillfully, because the sentences are so fucking long. Base God Flashy, I don't see an audiobook of Hoxha's Imperialism and the Revolution on YouTube, which is a classic. So I have several Hoxha things to get to. Imperialism, and I'm writing it down. Revolution. I have a bunch of Hoxha stuff I want to do. A lot of Hoxha books are kind of long. And, the easiest thing for me to do on the channel, it's things that are 30 to 60 minutes to read, maybe 90. Although even if things are 90, I can't really do it in one session. So a lot of the Hoxha stuff, I did like one or two shorter things from Hoxha. They tend to be pretty long. So there probably are some shorter ones out there. But anyway, there's more Hoxha coming, I guess is the bottom line. And I haven't read more of it because I just haven't been able to, at this point when I'm still trying to get other stuff up on the channel, trying to justify like taking 4 days in a row to do like a Hoxha book. I just can't do it. I got to get Mao and Lenin and Stalin up on the channel first, and Marx and Engels. So once that stuff's done, I mentioned before that I am planning on doing a big pass of early Marx and Engels so that I really don't have to come back to it, and then finish off a lot of the major Lenin stuff so that I don't have to come back to it. So then we can justify spending 3 or 4 days in a row, me recording like a 5-hour Hoxha book. I like Hoxha's writings, by the way. You can say whatever, about Albania, mixed results, or, they did end up very isolated. But, I like Hoxha's writings anyway. So anyway, Based God Flash. Oh no, that was the one I just read. Andrew S. Richtenberg has Das Kapital audiobook on YouTube. It starts boring and gets more interesting. I agree, the early parts are very boring, I think. And he's just sort of drumming into your head, what is a commodity? What is exchange? What is a use value? Which, if that's brand new to you, you need it drummed into your head. But then by like chapter 25 or whatever, it's, there's more moving pieces. He's using examples of businesses actually doing things and, turning money into capital and back and forth. Like that does get more interesting. I will be breaking those down as lessons. They will not just be straight audiobooks. If you want a preview, look at the Wage, Labor, and Capital audiobook that I did. Really, because it's like, yeah, okay, I can show everybody that, yes, I have read these words with my mouth, but if it went over everybody's head in the audience, then that doesn't really help anybody. It helps my ego that I have, recorded myself speaking it. The idea is for people to understand it, because ultimately, why are we running this channel? Why am I doing this? Because the thousands of people who are listening need to change the fucking world. We need to end capitalism. So that's why. So if I'm just reading stuff out there and people are not getting it at all, well, then that's not helpful. So I try to at least throw in comments to keep people's brains engaged. But yeah, that's the point. The point is not entertainment. The point is not parasocializing. The point is you read these things, then you go back into your life and you fucking do something. That's the point. All right, so let's see. Yeah, most people don't finish all 3 volumes of Capital, but we will. Amsterdam, 1999. He's all talking about prices for bolts of cloth and stuff. He gets really nitty-gritty right off the bat in Capital. Yes, as we know, I've blocked it out now, but whatever he keeps saying, it's like 2 yards of linen equals 1 coat. He says that like 50 times. And I'm just like, I was jokingly replying. People would comment like, oh, good video. And I would just write back 2 yards of linen equals 1 cloth or 1 coat, because I felt like it was just, should have been the name of the chapter. It's funny. But yeah, so, and Amsterdam adds, I couldn't do it. And see, that's the thing. I think a lot of people sit down and they're like, okay, I'm going to read Capital. And then they start and they're just like, kill me, like they can't do it. That's why we're going to do it together, piece by piece, chapter at a time. You will get through it. Again, if people want to start with the commodity, you can start there. It's already up. So let's see. Invient says, I'm on volume 3. It's actually my favorite so far. Yeah, I have not read 2 and 3. So I probably have been taught some of the concepts from 2 and 3, but I have not read them. Hopeful Apathy, what are we talking about? Well, the chat's lagging, but we're just talking about different things. This is not just Ask S4A for takes on current events. I'm trying to more facilitate a discussion. So if you have anything that's on your mind, just post a topic, or if you have an anecdote or a story or whatever, just, post that out there. When we do the videos on the channel, I'm doing audiobooks with some commentary and maybe breaking it down and talking about it. I'm trying to teach the audiobooks as well as just put them out there. And then applying it to current events and stuff like that. Here on the live stream, I don't want it to just be like I am sitting on the throne of opinion and you all, just ask me to hand down opinions. I really want a more just moderated discussion, so that's kind of what we're trying to do. And so far, we had some bumps in the road early on, but, I think it's going pretty well now. The 20 yards of linen line makes me feel like a Manchurian activation phrase after going through Marx's commodity fetish section. Yeah. I mean, he will drum it into your head. Volume 3 of Capital. Engels got a math guy to help clean up Marx's clunky math. Nice. The bill of lading thing interested me a lot for some reason. Volume 2 and 3 are a bit clunky because Engels was referring a lot to Marx's unedited notes and he wanted to be true to his friend. That's tough, yeah. A. Tyler B. says, the first book in my journey to studying history theory was People's History of the United States. So that seems to be kind of a common thread. I think there's some huge sort of faux cloud of mystery about, was Howard Zinn a member of CPUSA? I mean, he was active, he was a pretty old guy even when I was starting to read it, and I think that he was more active in a time where it was like the blacklists were still around, kind of thing, and so whether or not he was actually, but people do this with Horn too. It's like, oh, is he a communist or isn't he? And it's like whether you're in CPUSA or not, you can be a communist. There's plenty of communists that are not in CPUSA, but it's like, is Zinn a communist? I mean, I find the whole thing just kind of amusing. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should do that audiobook too. It is up for free online at historyisaweapon.com. So clearly they don't care that much about the copyright. Anyway, I may do that as well. I should probably just write that down now. It's probably inevitable, like Black Shirts and Reds, that I should do. People's History of the U.S. as in, just in case I look at that and go, which one? All right. Amsterdam, 1999. I want to hear Parenti read Black Shirts and Reds. I like his voice. Kind of sounds like Michael Douglas. Yeah, he has a nice voice. I can try to do an impression of him for the rest of the book. No, that would just be bad. But I will tell you, I make those, the thumbnail, I kind of have like a standard, they're not particularly good looking, but I have a standard format that I use for the thumbnails on the audiobooks. And I'm definitely using the yellow Parenti headshot on that one. Just I know it's a fan favorite, so. Can't get it in his voice, but we can at least use yellow Parenti. Kim Jong-chil's, yeah, the trucker shit had to be addressed. It certainly has been another dividing line on the left. Like the Pat Sock saga, I would say that it's just another manifestation of the same basic problem, which is right opportunism. That is like, you want the story of the U.S. left, it's right opportunism, and now there's kind of more of like an ultra-left anarchist thing going on too. What we need is people more in the middle, like who don't have either the right or the left errors. And I think with more concerted effort, we can get there. But it is a fight. It is a fight for sure. Have I ever read, Jakar asks, Jakar612, have you ever read Paul Lafargue's Right to be Lazy? I have not. However, well, actually, you know what? I take it back. I did read it years ago. I don't really remember it. But I am going to be reading it in the passive early Marx and Engels stuff. I'll be throwing that thing in too because it's from pretty early. Let's see. But yeah, I have not read it recently enough to say that, my current analytical lenses were applied to it. We will be doing it, I don't know, 3 or 4 months maybe. Amsterdam, 1999. I'm stoked for that. I think they're getting close to finishing. I'm not sure what that was. So Beezus broke back. I have a Vietnamese textbook on dialectical materialism, and it is really dry and hard to read. Well, this is one of the things of going over stuff now in the YouTube age of infotainment. I mean, we can try to, stay true to the core content, but also spice it up a little bit and make sure everybody's getting it. And that, for me, is the main the main function of the comment section, is for people to elaborate on points of confusion. The idea is we want to come away from this understanding it. So if you don't, and again, that's what these live streams are for. Think of them like office hours, but more of like a group session so that we can all talk about stuff. And it doesn't just have to be, points of confusion. If you want to just chat, we can do that too. So anyway, Dirk Richter, don't know if you know, but he's got dementia. Do you mean Parenti? I know he's old, but and I know he's old and hasn't been doing much, but I didn't know he had dementia. As of the last 3 years or so, he's phenomenal, and I hunt for a video of his to put on while I make dinner or walk to the store. His voice is so nice. Yeah, that is too bad. He is getting up there. Yeah, I was kind of curious too, because I was like, he hasn't died, but where is he? Let's see. Same with Castro. Castro speaking English is almost soothing. I'm not sure I have heard Castro speak. I'm sure I have, but I'm like, I can't think of it. Excuse me, 1 second. All right. Ombre 76, slave labor, you mean the poor. I have no idea what that is in reference to. Let's see. Horror Click 12, Franz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth has an audiobook. It's on my list. In fact, I thought I was going to do it, and then I got all tangled up in a bunch of other stuff, and I wasn't able to do it. I was kind of planning on hammering out a bunch of stuff, and I decided to prioritize other things, but it actually is on the list. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, though. Amsterdam. Zizek's debate was a clusterfuck, half because Jordan Peterson doesn't know anything about Marxism, and half because it isn't apparent how anything Zizek says has anything to do with Marxism. Yeah, I would concur with that. The debate with Peterson. Actually, I've been thinking about doing some comments on that. I can't do like I did with the Destiny Wolf thing. Well, I say I can't do, and then watch, I'll wind up doing it. I was going to say I don't think I can do like a total running commentary on the Zizek Peterson thing, because it's like already 3 hours, and if I add commentary, it's going to wind up 6 or 7 hours. But yeah, I mean, I've heard clips. I will at least do some clips from it. But it's clear, like, Peterson's read the manifesto and probably didn't even understand it, and maybe like half of one other thing. And, like, I'm sorry, but that doesn't qualify you to even open your mouth about Marx, let alone on stage in a debate. Like, crazy. And then, yeah, Zizek is not exactly like a defender of Marxism, so whatever. Base God Flashy, it's pretty interesting. I recall a section in State and Revolution where Lenin mentioned the bourgeois intellectuals making Marx acceptable. Yeah, quote-unquote acceptable, yes. And that's a common thing in Lenin. Turning Marx into a liberal. And basically dumbing him down and whitewashing it to something no longer revolutionary. Yeah, this is like basic revisionism, is turning Marx into a liberal. And especially like getting rid of the whole revolution concept that you can somehow like reform or vote your way into socialism, for sure. Let's see. For instance, Based God continues, the Japanese Communist Party claims Marx only wanted a democratic republic, quote, as opposed to the Soviet-style Paris Commune type system. Mind-blowing to read. Yeah, this is the kind of communist party that we're sometimes dealing with in the Western imperialist countries. People who say shit like that literally would go over only with somebody who literally does not know anything. Do you have a link to that, or is that sort of just something you remember from over the years? I'm going to make a note of that. Japanese CP Marx anti-commune. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, there are different levels of revisionism, maybe. That would be, like, pretty blatant. I mean, also what Richard Wolff was doing, where he, like, in 2002 is quoted as saying, like, I'm going to redefine what Marxism means. It's going to mean co-ops. That's revisionism. That's when you're like, I am going to redefine Marx. Yeah, you can't, like, do that, actually. But, yeah, that's the kind of communist party we're sometimes dealing with. And we need to deal with that. Like, we need to work around that, and we need to fucking move forward anyway. And I will leave it up to everybody to figure out how to do that. But it's a clear task of the Western left, is like, these revisionist parties are in our fucking way. So yeah, I mean, as evidenced by the fact that revolution has gone absolutely nowhere for a long time. Yeah, I know the imperialists are buying us off, but also the leadership is just not fucking happening. Let's see. Kim Jong Chills, I have a certain resentment towards Jordan Peterson. I was addicted to benzos for years and ended up having to quit cold turkey in isolation in a jail cell. His rich ass went to another country to go into a coma to get through the withdrawals painlessly. Yeah, plus I'll bet you didn't even get rich. I mean, Peterson, is he okay? He like showed up on the Joe Rogan show in a tuxedo. I saw somebody retweeted that with the comment, our recovering addict friend is now wearing a tuxedo outside the house, and we're not sure if it means he's doing better or worse. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was an interesting character before that. I'm just glad that it kind of broke some of his momentum, although he seems to be kind of mounting a comeback. But it's just like, oh, you got to take care of your life, and I mean, you got to be responsible and clean your room. And oh, by the way, I'm a total fucking hypocrite because I'm like doing all the things that I'm telling you not to do. It's just like any other right wing fucking televangelist that's like, down with the gays. And like, meanwhile, his like pager's going off of like, yeah, I'll meet you at the hotel, later with his like male escorts. It's always the same. Like, when are they going to figure it out? I mean, Bill Hicks used to do a whole comedy routine on this. Like, the further right you are, the bigger the skeletons in your closet. It's that simple. End of story. So anyway, it was funny watching Peterson just shit the bed. Yeah, I mean, couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. So SPC 244, if you have the time, I would love for you to go over and explain, and if you agree on all or some of the 10 points in the Communist Manifesto, end of part 2. So I'm not going to do that. Whatever I'd be using and first of all, it's a good question, so thank you. I'm not going to do that because that was what they were starting with at that point in time, and I'm only going to assume it made sense for them at the time, which was a long time ago. And so, I mean, as far as do I agree with them or not, I agree that they were there, and I agree that they thought it was a good idea, and I don't think I need to have an opinion on it. Like, further than that, I'm just going to assume that, yes, those were very sensible things to demand at that time. I don't see any particular reason why I wouldn't. It's part of the reason I'm here today doing this. Like, I agree with them. But no, I mean that, everybody has their points that they think maybe Marx was a little bit weaker on or whatever. That's not one of them. It's very typical for, communist groups to make those kind of like sweeping reform demands. And so, I mean, I think it makes sense. If you have anything more specific, like if you don't agree with some of them and you want to say like, one thing that's always, because again, just gently nudging and reminding people, like if you want to get away from sort of asking for my take on stuff, if you want to be more specific as far as like, is that something that you think? And have you, in all the years of reading the Communist Manifesto and being a socialist, have you just always wondered why like points, I don't know, 3 and 5 were in there because you never got it? Now that's a good, interesting, specific question. But yeah, no, I mean, good general point. I'm not trying to like berate you in any way at all. Just maybe redirecting a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you look at any communist group to this day, that kind of sweeping reform thing is usually in there. So that's, yeah, I think it made sense then, and it still makes sense. Kim Jong Chil says, I was in jail for 6 months, and I swear that 75% of the people in there are there because they did too many Xanax. That drug is a straight war on the working class. I was not aware of that. Would you care to expand on that? Because that is interesting. I'm going to make a note of that. You mean just like they got hooked and then couldn't get a prescription and then had to buy some illegally? Because that makes sense. It's very addictive. It's very addictive. And people are having a lot of anxiety these days. Back to the thing about alienation we were talking about before. Base God Flashy, Capital Volume 3 is a leftcom's nightmare. They all are, but especially Volume 3. Well, I look forward to that because, orthodox Marxists are something I'm really tired of. I think in that DSA Marxist Unity Caucus that we were talking about, they kind of try to do that orthodox leftcom line. Like, oh yeah, I'm Marxist, but I'm not Marxist, Leninist, or you're trying to be Marxist but anti-USSR. You're trying to be Marxist but anti the first actual implementation of it on a national scale. Yeah, that's not a line you can really walk, especially when Lenin was so careful about reading Marx and trying to implement it. So, let's see. Amsterdam about help reading through Capital. Thanks. They're looking forward to it, and what I do is helpful. Well, good. I hope so. I mean, I get that feedback a lot. That's why I keep doing it. So, yeah, try not to just do the audiobooks, but to engage with it and kind of teach it. I mean, it helps me retain it better, too. I'm not confident enough to really go out and do stuff just yet, but I don't plan on just reading books forever. That's good. I mean, get educated, and you can get educated online. Used to be you'd have to join a party to get educated. You don't have to do that now. You do still have to join an organization to organize, but you don't have to get educated, and that's great. Kim Jong Chills says, I'm in the PSL and I love it. So for what it's worth. Amsterdam says there's a PSL like an hour and a half away from me, and local DSA seems to have imploded, and they were kind of the only game in town. I would look for other things to come out of that. Like if you hit up their contacts and just ask, like, have any other groups reformed, you might be able to find something. I find that to be the case. Spider Dijon, reading Capital with Comrades on a podcast is useful. They mention reading it in different ways, like begin with the first chapter and then go to beginning. Oh, final chapter, excuse me. Then go to beginning. I'll probably do that next time around. Yeah, so I'll be doing it as individual comments. So, I mean, you can make a playlist and just put it in whatever order you want. Just drag them around. YouTube's good for that. Based God Flashy says, it's pretty funny and ironic that right-wing, quote, communists claim to hold Parenti, but he makes a scathing criticism of the revisionist term PMC in Black Shirts and Reds. There's a whole chapter on it. Yep, yeah, that'll be up on the channel in like a week or so, so we'll all discuss that at that time. Higher Intelligence LLC says, communism is better than starving. Communism is better than dying at the hands of a drug dealer. Ethical, nope. There's no ethical capitalism. So we're not going down that. We're not really going down that path. There's no ethical communism. So or capitalism. I mean, to just kind of go on to that. Part of the reason that I'm doing Socialism for All is after many years of looking at different political philosophies and different political organizations and groups and trends in history, I don't think that there is any other option. I really think socialism is the only way forward. If anybody else can point anything else out, go ahead, show me. I've probably seen it before and have ruled it out. But no, I don't think that there is any other possibility. And as far as ethical capitalism, I think that you're confused there. I think you're talking about something that's not really possible. Usually when people talk about ethical capitalism, they're talking about client states of imperialism, where the U.S. does all the dirty work, and then they just sort of hang on around the edges and put in some investment money and, buy off their people as a social democracy. But that's still, it's all connected to the global imperialism. Hang on. All right, somebody needs a muffler driving by outside. Yeah, so ethical capitalism, not a thing. There's just capitalism, and the world, development of such. It has spread to most of the world. Some parts of the world have even moved on from it already. But there's no nice golden form of capitalism that you can just hang on to. This is part of the dialectic of history. It moves forward. It's a moving target, and you can't just freeze it in a certain condition. Capitalism creates a class called the proletariat that is dispossessed, owns no capital, and eventually the interest of the proletariat is ending private property, ending capitalism. So capitalism, like every other stage before it, digs its own grave. You just can't hang out and have capitalism forever. Indivient says, am I ML only, or am I going to do non-ML socialist books? I mean, I've already done non-ML socialist books. When I do them, it tends to be with some sort of proviso that, we're sort of doing it to get other points of view, but that it's not really my primary focus. I'm primarily ML because I think that it's by far the most successful and coherent approach to implementing socialism, implementing Marxism in the modern world. That said, it probably also has weaknesses and still needs to be just perfected. And, looking at some outside perspectives also helps. So, anyway, that's why I do it. So, I've done a couple of things from Trotsky. We'll be doing more Trotsky. And we'll be doing Bukharin and other people who didn't make the cut in Stalin's USSR. So, I mean, we'll be looking at different things. We've done Rosa Luxemburg, who Lenin is often, supportive but quite critical of as well. So, yeah, but I mean, this isn't about to become like a leftcom channel. I mean, like I've done also like one from, what's his name? Bordiga, who had some frankly like batshit opinions on things, like, and is not really good or supportable. That said, I mean, everybody writes one or two good things, right? Mostly. So, yeah, I mean, I guess there's the answer. Jakar, do I have any advice for someone trying to organize workers within a reactionary union? That's way too general a question. It's a good topic. It's too general a question for me to give any advice. What industry? What union? And the reason why, and I guess this is going to be the bulk of my answer, is the thing about it is that organizing a union is really, I mean, there are general principles and you can take trainings on it and things like that. But when the rubber hits the road, it's kind of James Bond time. It's you've really got to read situations, map social networks, know when to talk to somebody, have a sixth sense for when the bosses are in the corner. I mean, it's tricky. Like, it is not probably something everyone is going to excel at. Some people might just be good supporting members within an organizing committee, but maybe they're not the one to do the fancy footwork of like waiting, 13 working days until the boss is out sick and the other coworker who would not be sympathetic to a union in your estimation, but always hangs around the person that you do think would be and that you want to get them alone and like talk to them one-on-one. You got to wait till like they're both out on the same day. So it's like, the advice can be super specific. As far as general advice, like not off the top of my head, and especially not 2 hours and 15 minutes into a live stream where I'm just kind of fatigued. So it's a good question. Maybe bring it up again with some more specifics later on. So speaking of, I'm probably just going to do like another 10 or 15 minutes. We've been going for a while. I have enjoyed this though, especially after we got all the sort of bickering in the comments out. This has been really good. And people can say, oh, you're just making the comments the way you want it. Yeah, but I'm the one that has to do this. So if I don't do it the way that I want it and it's just wearing me down, then I'm not going to want to do it. You want me to want to do this. Let's put it that way. You want me to facilitate, and I want to hear you. That's the point. I don't want to have to pick through a bunch of people fucking calling each other like red liberals to be able to hear you. Anyway, that's the idea. So continuing, Christian Parenti, Michael's son, does a few interviews where he gives updates on his dad. He also has a great book I read called Tropic of Chaos. Good to know. Cardhorse 1 says Jordan Peterson is fucking lazy. I'm doing a really bad Jordan. I can do a better Peterson, but it's not coming out today. Bucko, I would really, I have stern words for you. Trying to call someone who's, the master of chaos. You don't want those chaos dragons coming in, and I've mastered them. Go clean your room, etc., etc. You know the story. Yeah, no, he's fucking lazy. He's a complete hack. All he's doing is just giving warmed over, compassionate conservative talking points from the fucking dawn of capitalism. That is all he's doing. Spider Dijon OG. I see young Marxists hanging out with Parenti on Twitter. The photos look really sweet. Well, that is nice. Kim Jong Chills, I remember I read that Japan had the biggest communist party outside of a communist country, and it made no sense to me since Japan has always been very right-wing. Well, now I don't know the specifics of this. I've kind of heard that too, not that specifically, but I have heard that, I have heard many references to the Communist Party of Japan. So it's not that I've heard that they're big, but I've heard a lot about them, which sort of implies that they have a presence because they keep crossing my radar, crossing my tracks like frequently. So, I don't really know that much about them. Two thoughts, though. One thing is, if they're as revisionist as people in here have said, like Marx was anti-USSR, then I imagine that they've attracted a lot of liberals. So that could be one reason why they're so big, is that they're not actually communist. And another thing is that Japan was a fascist country. So it is possible that, they built up a significant amount of anti-fascist communist people in their population. So that's another reason that they could be, could be a lot of communists there, is that they have seen the benefits of being anti-fascist in a particularly communist way. And it could be both of those things, and it could be something else entirely. Okay. Here's the link to the Japanese Communist Party. They talk about how to read Lenin and how to read Marx. Yeah, I'm going to have to get into that one. That sounds super interesting. Oh, man. Comrade Saul, a patron. I recognize you. The comments just jumped real quick. I don't know what happened there. Hey, S4A, solidarity to you. Solidarity to you, too. I've been reading a book series you recommended to me. Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States is a good starter to analyze U.S. history from a socialist lens. Well, there you go. 3 times in one stream, People's History of the U.S. has come up. So it's now confirmed. I'm definitely doing that on the channel. I'm doing Black Shirts and Reds first, though. As a good starter to analyze U.S. history from a socialist lens, would I ever plan on reading it? Yes. So, yeah, if you just came in, that's the 3rd time it came up, so we'll definitely do that. Dope Wizard Comrade says, sorry, I missed part of the end of the comment. Not going to be able to stay because of some commitments. Well, it's good to have you, and thank you for the question. Dope Wizard Comrade says, Fanon would be awesome to hear. I have several books of theirs on my shelf, but I'm so busy with work or family obligations, I never get a chance to sit and read. Another reason what you're doing is so important. Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't have as much time to read as I would like either. So for me too, it serves the same purpose. I'm like, that's why I made the channel. I'm like, I'm never gonna do all this reading if I don't do it as and produce videos of it. If otherwise, I'm gonna half-ass it. So, it's a good way to make sure I read every last word and really pay attention and everything else. So yes, hold on. Okay, that was more of a loud engine than a lack of a muffler, but same end result, too much noise. But yeah, anyway, Fanon is definitely coming up. Peterson sounds like Kermit to me. Yes, I mean, even Jordan Peterson has had, he's in on the joke at this point, and I guess he's not offended by it enough that he is, taking pictures, posing with a Kermit the Frog doll. So he is aware that he sounds like a freaking Muppet. So anyway, and let me just say, sounding like a Muppet, it's not always the worst thing. There's some Muppets with lovely voices, but Kermit, it is, I think, best suited probably to Kermit. Kim Jong Chills, Bill Hicks is what turned me to a leftist back when I was in high school, back in 2007. We didn't have much access to leftist thought, and he was pretty radical. To my 15-year-old self, I mean, yeah, he has drawbacks. There's kind of I think a low-key, well, I don't know. There's drawbacks. I think he does not have, the greatest views on certain subjects. Maybe we'll excavate that at some point. Then again, maybe we won't, because it's not that important. But, yeah, he has some funny bits about different things that definitely relate. I mean, I love his stuff about his anti-conservative humor is, great. That's very enjoyable. Particularly, the anti-religious conservative, he talks about the creationists. I was actually just talking about this the other day, where he's talking about people who people who don't believe in evolution, and he's like, okay, so what do you make of dinosaur fossils? And he's having a mock conversation with somebody who believes in evolution, or sorry, it was in creationism, and he's like, so okay, dinosaurs. I believe that God put those bones there to test my faith. And then Hicks's reply is, I think God put you here to test my faith, dude. Because it's true. It's just so absurd. And yet, I mean, that stuff still goes on. There's a creationist museum. Yeah, I mean, it's horrendous. But, people sometimes, I think, underestimate how deep and rancid these pockets of reaction, these abscesses of extremely backward thought run in the United States. Amsterdam says George Carlin was kind of that for me. Tool turned him on to Bill Hicks. Yeah, Carlin never like grabbed me as much. He's okay, but I don't know. I just never got into Carlin as much. I was more of a Bill Hicks guy. I am not this person. Can't wait to see your next COVID video. Yeah, I mean, I threw out the one on BA2. We're in a lull at the time, for the time being. I don't know what else to say, I mean, it's dramatically upsetting to me that entire situation is going on. I will probably make more videos at the time of the next peak. It's getting hard to keep track of the latest developments because now we have like multiple really contagious, really virulent strains going on, and the government is just not handling it well. They're just like boosters forever, but I'm as pro booster as you can get, and I know that that's not going to cut it alone. You also need to stop transmission. And I think that there is gradually, from what I see on like of medical Twitter people that I follow, there is this like dawning realization of like, hey, nothing's being done. And I'm like, yeah, kind of, we need you to get political now, so I'm trying to nudge any commenters I see on medical Twitter. Actually, that reminds me, medical Twitter person Denise DeWald, MD, randomly, fucking out of the blue on Saturday, came out with like, I'm purging my comments of Marxist nuts. Communism will never work. And you got a lot of backlash in the comments. And the funny thing is, I didn't even see people talking about communism in her comments. Like maybe she saw some people with hammer and sickle avatars or names like Socialism for All, because I would be in the comments, but I never said anything but supportive comments. So it's like, look, you're in the petty bourgeoisie, you're a wealthy doctor, member of the professional class. You have to make a choice because the petty bourgeoisie is not one of the great classes in society in capitalism. The big bourgeoisie and the proletariat are. The petty bourgeoisie is a social sliver that has to ally with one of these two classes to get anything done. And clearly she's going with the big bourgeoisie, openly anti-communist, blocked a lot of people. But not before a lot of people gave her a piece of their mind about like, look, you're out here doing public health stuff. Who do you think is fucking supporting you? The big bourgeoisie? No. They're the ones that you're tweeting against, although you don't fucking connect that. So anyway, she didn't want to hear it, but more medical Twitter people and public health Twitter people need to get political, because if they don't, guess what? We already voted Democrat. The Democrats are already in there, and things are not real good. Because they put Jeff Zients in charge of the COVID response, guy from Bain Capital. Might as well have Mitt Romney in there. So anyway. Kim Jong-chil says, in reference to the Xanax thing before, no, it's not people getting addicted and then buying it illegally. It's that the drug makes you do the most irrational shit. They call it felony fuel because it removes all inhibition without the negatives that come from alcohol. Well, that sounds terrible. So then people take it and do poor judgment and often illegal things. That's terrible. So what else do we got? Because I'm not this person, was looking forward to the COVID video because I hate how everyone just denies COVID. It's just horrible and still happening. Literally, most people around me don't wear masks or even have gotten full vaccination. And, yeah, I mean, I've, read of people in some places, they go into doctors' offices and the doctors and staff are not wearing masks. So it is bad and it's not over. And I see no reason why. I can't say, oh, there's going to be other spikes. I see no reason why there wouldn't be many more spikes of COVID. You have to stop transmission. If you don't stop transmission, it keeps spreading and it keeps mutating. And trying to think it's going to be like the flu, no. That's more people, I think it was about as many people died during the Omicron wave as like had died in the pandemic up to that point. It's not good. So anyway. I'm not this person asks, what are some good orgs to consider joining? They are so far away from people in rural areas, etc. So, good question. I am not recommending orgs because I don't want to recommend something and have it not be a good fit, or for the org to be having massive problems that I don't know about. So I can't recommend orgs. The only thing I've said is that for people who don't have much experience, unless there's a small org that's really, really speaking to you, I tend to recommend larger orgs like a DSA or a Greens, where you know you're going to have to fight with liberals going in, unlike going into an organization that calls itself socialist or communist, and then you have to fight with revisionists, and get fucking gaslit by them. Not to say CPUSA always does that, but I've heard from many people that had that specific experience. And I'm not pulling that out of my ass. That's a thing people have repeatedly told me that I have not heard from other organizations. So take that for what it's worth. That's not to say that there aren't good clubs and sectors of it, but that is an experience I've heard from many people. But yeah, I'm like, if you go into it, especially if you don't have organization experience, if you go into an org where you know you're going to be in the left wing and you're going to have to fight with the right wing, that's probably easier off the bat. Then you can meet people and do something else. I don't think it's controversial to recommend that. Like, when you start getting into recommending one socialist or communist organization over others, then people are like, oh, like, you're taking this position, and I just don't even really want to get into that. So anyway, but the thing about people being in rural areas, that is tough because you're right that a lot of the organizations just are not, the population tends to be more sparse in rural areas, and you might have to be in more of like an online thing for a while. I don't know. But look around. That's what I always say. Is like you really don't need me to tell you what the organizations are. Look up lists, and whatever else. But I just, anyway, at the current time, I'm not recommending any orgs or endorsing any orgs. Let's put it that way. Okay. Let's see. Somebody says socialism, communism is a cult. I'm not qualified or smart enough to deprogram these people. Please help me learn. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but I don't think it's a discussion I feel like having right now. But yeah, don't feed the troll, and thank you, Kim Jong-chils, for pointing that out. That is a rule here. Don't feed the troll. It just makes the chat harder to read, and I will get rid of them, so don't worry about it. All right, so I do kind of need to wrap up. Let me just see what else I've got here and just try to answer quickly. Kim Jong-chils, I always have to remind other Americans that we are literally just 4% of the world population. We're fucking up the whole world. Absolutely good point. I am not this person. Says, will I ever read those MLM books I asked for on Twitter? Yes, that feels like a bit of a loaded question, but yeah, if I could show you my reading stack, you'd be surprised. It's fairly long and just takes a while to read through the books. Yes, basically, I'm planning on finishing what I'm doing now, which is the basic ML study guide and associated texts and a few other things on nationalism. Then I plan to do, in this spring, some early Marx and Engels and the rest of the Lenin stuff I haven't done. When that's done, I want to get into like Trotsky, Stalin, Bukharin, early USSR stuff, post-Lenin. And then after all that's done, I will probably get into the MLM stuff. I might read a text or two before that, but I'm trying to go more chronological once I wrap up my current thing. I might throw in one of those books in before I get started with the chronology, but anyway. Saul says, I talked with a member of CPUSA yesterday who's been there for 40 years. It was a really interesting talking with an older communist who was involved with a lot of modern movements. It's helping to inspire me to begin connecting with my community. That's been my experience too. It's like you kind of have to skip like 2 generations back almost to find people who are really active radicals. There's like less so of the younger boomers and Gen X, but if you go to like older boomers and earlier, those are probably some of the most interesting people that I've talked to as far as like being a socialist, communist, radical unionist, whatever, in the U.S. Babel Boom says, forwarding agency owners are not truckers, owners are not workers, yeah. So anyway, I think that was in relation to a troll, but thank you, Kim Jong-chils, for pointing out not to feed the troll again. Let's see. What else do we have? The U.S. is nowhere near the world's biggest population. Yeah, not at all. 17% China, 18% India, 4.6% the U.S. But it uses most of the resources, makes most of the pollution, etc. U.S. Navy, like the biggest polluter of the oceans. And then like Nigeria, Indonesia, U.S. isn't even close to being the biggest population. Yeah, it's definitely, the very loud, conservative victim that just wants to center themselves all the time. Let's see. Yeah. Dirk says, obviously we're not the biggest, but the influence we have and the way we talk, you'd be, yeah. I mean, the U.S. gives the impression of like being this huge country. It really isn't. I mean, the U.S. is like, I think off the top of my head, about 330 million people. China's like 1.4 billion, so not even close. Let's see. Excuse me. Jordan Peterson sounds like the air leaking out of a 10-day-old balloon. That got me coughing. Really good stream. So happy I found this channel. By the way, it was Marx's Paul who recommended me. Well, thanks. Marx's Paul has invited me on the show, and I think I'm going to do... he had mentioned what he wanted to talk about. I think I'm going to finish some of the nationalism texts before going on, but I think I probably will do that. I hadn't done any appearances in 2022, and then I have kind of enough of a backlog at this point. And I also kind of know who's who at this point. We went through the whole Pat Sock thing, and I think I have. I think I'm ready to make some appearances now. Let's see. Yeah, so it was a nice chill stream. Nice to see all these comrades in the chat. That's what I'm saying. It's like this is really an anti-debate bro channel, and like nobody wants to come in here and at the end of a workday like read a bunch of people like calling each other like libtard or whatever. So yeah, or it might have been Hakeem. Okay. So I think I'm going to wrap up here. Because I've been going for over 2.5 hours, and that's a nice note to end on. So anyway, we do this twice a week. It's 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesdays and Saturdays as a regularly scheduled thing. S4A now has qualified for Twitch affiliate status, so I don't gotta be here, but if we can do this in a way that is non-debate bro-y and isn't just people coming in being like, thoughts on China? I'd like to have it be more of a discussion where I'm facilitating rather than just sort of telling you all what to think. And I'll keep making this point as we, go along, because I get that this is a different, more cooperative approach than I think a lot of the chats do, but that's more what I'm going for. So if your comment didn't get answered today, maybe we'll do it next time. And until then, I guess thanks to the current patrons, whose unfortunately their names are not on the screen, but they're at the end of every other video. Thanks to everybody who supports this channel, whether it's showing up in a live chat or just liking and subscribing. I really appreciate it, and there will be more videos coming starting tomorrow, Wednesday, and another live chat on Saturday. So we'll see you then. If I can find there we go.